What you just saw is not a war scene in the Middle East. It's one of the most savage ambushes suffered by the Mexican military in their anti-drug operations. The hail of bullets almost always ends with the bodies of fallen soldiers piled in the street, a nightmarish scene caused by Mexico's #1 enemy, the cartels. In this episode of Military Might, we'll analyze 3 attacks that resulted in the death of uniformed personnel. All of them were killed in horrific ways, hunted down mercilessly like wild animals. Get ready, because this is a raw and violent video. On Sunday, November 19th, 2023, the town of Teocaltiche in Jalisco was stained with blood due to a spectacular shootout between criminals and security forces. The incident occurred on the border with the state of Zacatecas, an area that has been increasing in danger as cartels turn its roads into narcotics trafficking routes. In particular, the Altos Norte region of Jalisco suffers due to a dispute between the Jalisco New Generation Cartel and the Sinaloa Cartel. The clash took place at 8:45 in the morning at the checkpoint of the 9th Battalion, located on the road leading from Teocaltiche to the municipality of Nochistlán. A group of soldiers was stationed there performing routine tasks when they suddenly received a deadly and unexpected visit from hitmen with one mission to annihilate them. The following video was recorded at the moment of the attack. The criminals arrive in a white armored truck and begin firing at the soldiers from there. These armored beasts are a sort of homemade tanks that allow the criminals to stay safe while shooting at their targets. Let's continue with the footage. The attack is lethal both because of its suddenness and the firepower used by the narcos. Within a few seconds, another attacking vehicle arrives, but this time it stops next to its prey. The assailants are equipped with assault rifles, machine guns, and other military-grade platforms. The soldiers try to take cover behind their vehicles, but they are not in a position to respond immediately. First, they must escape the gunfire. Fur dust adds a dramatic tone to the scene. After the initial exchange of fire, a group of soldiers stands up to prepare for a potential second attack. Some operatives approach the vehicle with the camera recording everything, ensuring that the hitmen are retreating. Before the video ends, one of the bullets hits the window of one of the units, making it look like a scene from an action movie. No one can doubt that the drug cartels are the best screenwriters and actors of the genre. The final toll was 3 soldiers dead and another 3 critically wounded, who had to be rushed to the local hospital. Meanwhile, after fleeing the area, the hitmen set one of their armored vehicles on fire on the Jalistotitlan-Teocaltiche highway at kilometer 30. This blockade slowed down the response time of the authorities. The attackers also blocked the road between San Juan de los Lagos and Jalistotitlan at kilometer 55, where they crossed a green Kenworth truck carrying bananas. The Jalisco Security Secretariat removed both vehicles a few hours after the assault, but the narco-traffickers' objective had already been achieved. The day after the attack, the Secretary General of the Zacatecas government announced that, in 3 municipalities of the state, surveillance had been reinforced with National Guard agents and military personnel from the National Defense Secretariat. The official also admitted that the border between Jalisco and Zacatecas is a complicated point due to the presence of organized crime. The chosen adjective seems insufficient to represent the level of violence experienced in that area of Mexico. As we've mentioned, in that location, 2 of the most powerful criminal organizations in the world are fighting to the death for control of cocaine routes. 3 days after the ambush, it was revealed that the perpetrators were members of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. The National Defense Secretariat stated in a press release that, as part of the National Public Security Strategy and the federal government's zero impunity policy, 1,086 Army personnel and 2 aircraft from the Mexican Air Force were deployed. The aim was to inhibit the actions of organized crime in the area, as well as to maintain public peace. Simultaneously, tributes were held for the 3 fallen soldiers, including the heartfelt procession you will see next. Amidst tears and applause, the coffins of the fallen soldiers in Teocaltiche were bid farewell. They were transported covered with the Mexican flag as a final gesture of respect for their sacrifice. Thus, they joined the extensive list of those who have died in the region, a hotspot on the country's map. This territory connects Jalisco with the roots of the so-called Golden Triangle of fuel theft, an area where most large-scale gasoline thefts occur. In addition to its importance for that business, it is a gateway to highly significant areas for drug trafficking and money laundering, such as the Guadalajara metropolitan area and Puerto Vallarta. The surge of violence particularly affects Teocaltiche. In June 2023, a few months before the ambush of the soldiers, 5 civilians were shot and killed by criminals from the Jalisco New Generation cartel. Later, in October, federal authorities dismantled 3 surveillance centers that organized crime had set up in the town. Despite the state's efforts, 2023 was especially bloody in terms of clashes between the cartels and the armed forces. Between January and May of that year, 41 military personnel were killed in the fight against crime. In the same period of 2022, the number of fatalities was 19, marking an exponential increase in the deadliness of these encounters. Extending the scope to the start of the infamous drug war in 2006, 670 Sedena personnel have died in such confrontations. Jalisco is not the only red spot on the Mexican map. The community of Balsamar, located in the state of Guerrero, is another area heavily impacted by narcotics-related violence. In 2019, Army personnel experienced this firsthand during a daylight massacre. On September 27th of that year, a dozen soldiers from the 15th Regiment were assigned the mission of destroying drug plantations in the mountains as part of the Guerrero Intensive Eradication Operation. The problem was that hitmen from the Sierra cartel were aware of this activity. Naturally, they were not going to surrender their illicit operation without a fight. What you will see next is footage of the moment when the ambush, which ended in tragedy, began. Nearly 20 seconds of uninterrupted gunfire were directed straight at the security personnel. In the footage, at least 4 hitmen can be seen armed with machine guns and Kalashnikov-style assault rifles, a true classic among bandits and terrorists. The goat's horn, as users refer to it because of the shape of the magazine, is a lethal device when used in this manner. This grim footage was taken by the attackers themselves, as if the massacre was merely a form of entertainment for them. It's hard to believe, but there's even a record of the moment when one of the attackers changes the magazine of his weapon to continue the assault. For 1 minute, which is the duration of the clip, continuous bursts of gunfire are heard, along with insults and threats from the hitmen. The Sierra cartel killers acted with cunning, using the element of surprise to completely overwhelm the SEDENA members. Combining the unexpected nature of the assault with the altitude and knowledge of the terrain, the narcos had all the winning cards in this bloody encounter. The attack was carried out with full premeditation and malice, aiming to cause as much damage as possible by resorting to the old and always reliable tactic of an ambush. The objective was fully achieved. When the magazines were emptied, 3 lifeless bodies of uniformed personnel lay on the ground in the Guerrero jungle. The deceased soldiers were identified as Sergeant Jesus Mendoza Bautista, Corporal Jorge Chagala Fiscal, and Corporal Jesus Salazar Juarez from Tamaulipas and Veracruz. Fortunately, the rest of the military personnel reacted to repel the attack and force the assailants to flee. When the fighting ended, the Army deployed the maximum number of available troops in the region. 2 UH-60 helicopters were also put into service to conduct aerial and ground reconnaissance to locate the perpetrators. However, the Defense Secretariat was unable to make any arrests related to the massacre. The Sierra cartel hitmen managed to escape, covering up any clues that could lead the authorities to their hideouts. The first and bloody footage we analyzed was recorded by the attackers, but the firefight was also captured from the victim's perspective. We now show you footage of the soldiers who were shot and had to transport their wounded comrades to receive medical attention. We warn you that what you are about to see is very graphic and dramatic material, not suitable for sensitive viewers. Following the ambush, a video was released showing the moment one of the injured personnel is attended to by his comrades. He is being transported to a health center aboard a military vehicle. The scene is desperate and very graphic. One soldier provides first aid while his companions watch the road, in case the Sierra cartel hitmen decide to return to continue the attack. The audio in the footage is not the best, but it is possible to hear how they try to talk to the injured man. Calming him is crucial to stop the bleeding from the bullet wounds. We do not know the identity of this soldier or his fate, but the images reveal a decidedly bleak prognosis. As mentioned earlier, this brutal attack occurred in an area very prone to this type of violence. The town of Balsamar is located in central Guerrero, about 35 kilometers from Chilpancingo, the capital. The area is abundant in marijuana and poppy plantations due to its challenging access for law enforcement. Unfortunately, this was not the first time the troops from the 15th Regiment suffered casualties from criminal attacks. Years earlier, they had been attacked in Tamaulipas, resulting in 2 soldiers being wounded. The third case we will analyze in this video also took place in Guerrero, but in 2018, highlighting that violence in the region has been a growing phenomenon for some time. This time, we travel to the town of Monte Grande, where the ground was left stained with the blood of 3 Mexican Army personnel. The shocking part is that this massacre began with the mysterious murder of a local politician, which triggered a significant investigation. In May 2018, the candidate for Deputy Abel Montufar Mendoza was executed by drug cartel hitmen. He became the 3rd public official gunned down within a few days. The situation was critical, prompting the government to send a group of soldiers to calm the region and, eventually, capture those responsible for the crimes. What they did not know was that the soldiers were marching toward their own death. When the uniformed personnel were near the El Pozo ranch, owned by the Montufar family, they were ambushed by a group of armed criminals. These were not ordinary gunmen. They were cartel operatives equipped with assault rifles and high-caliber machine guns. With these weapons, they riddled the military convoy with bullets. There are no records of the incident as it happened in a remote area. However, below we will see one of the many ambushes suffered by the officers in the region, which gives a clear perspective of what those men may have suffered in May 2018. As you have just seen, drug traffickers attack in broad daylight and without regard to the presence of civilians. From one moment to the next, a patrol operation can turn into a mass shooting of officers. For this reason, in Mexico, the military career is an especially risky profession, even in a country without external conflicts. The problem is that the great enemy of the nation lives within. But let's go back to what happened in 2018. The attack was devastating, resulting in the death of 3 public servants. Although no specific organization was identified, at that time the region was dominated by fronts such as the Familia Michoacana, which had thousands of well-armed hitmen ready to annihilate representatives of the law. The dead soldiers belonged to the 34th Infantry Battalion and were identified as Pedro Chavez, Infantry Lieutenant, Patricio Garcia, 2nd Sergeant, and Raul Bernal, Infantry Corporal. In addition, 3 other Mexican Army personnel were seriously injured and had to spend a long time in the hospital. Below, you will hear one of the survivors recount in first person how this savage attack occurred.
Y empezamos a sufrir la agresión en diferentes flancos. O sea, ellos ya sabían que íbamos a estar ahí, sabían que íbamos a llegar y sabían que ya a lo que íbamos allá. Prácticamente ya parapetados, ya sabían que tal vez íbamos a llegar nosotros ahí. Y nos reciben prácticamente con todo lo que tienen.
Earlier, we mentioned that there is no specific record of this offensive, but the testimonies of the soldiers who managed to escape help to understand the level of brutality of the ambush. The ranch became a hunting ground. The hitmen were there, prepared to capture their prey. Another security personnel recalls those minutes of violence worthy of a nightmare.
Y yo nomás aprecié a ver un muchacho, lo aprecié ver de lejos y ya después voy viendo que alzó su arma y cuando lo vi empezaron a tirarnos, empezaron a darle a mis compañeros y escuchaba a mis demás compañeros que pedían auxilio.
The El Pozo ranch case led to a major investigation. A few days after the incident, the arrest of one of those involved in the massacre was reported, a young man whose identity has not been revealed and was formally declared a prisoner, charged with the aggravated homicide of 3 Mexican army officers. Beyond his arrest, the truth is that the criminal structure that led to the death of the officers has not been dismantled. As long as the cartels continue to operate with total freedom, the lives of the uniformed officers will continue to be at high risk. Today's video was a review of just 3 cases of drug attacks that ended in tragedy. However, these types of situations are an everyday occurrence. The pile of corpses continues to grow, and the measures of the Mexican government do not seem to have any effect in stopping this crisis. This way, we come to the end of the video. If you are interested in the current state of organized crime in Aztec territory, we invite you to subscribe and activate notifications for our channel. Without further ado, we say goodbye until the next installment of Military Might. Thank you for joining us.